I really thought we would be getting nerfs last week, but apparently since we didn't, surely it's gonna be this one. And Druid Stone should finally be at its end, hopefully. In this video I will show you the 5 best Hearthstone decks right now, so you guys know what to be playing until then. I'm assuming we should be hearing about the patch on Tuesday, and we should be getting it implemented on Thursday, so hold tight. Anyway, if you're serious about Hearthstone, drop a like and subscribe to the channel, and don't forget you can hire me for some Hearthstone coaching. Now, let's check out the decks.
You are not prepared!
The first deck on the list is obviously gonna have to be Druid, which is obviously causing all of the problems right now. This is currently the best performing list from Diamond to Legend, and also in top 1000 Legend it's basically pretty much the same. And the only difference is the top 1000 list also runs a Viper, because they're facing so many mirrors basically. Anyway, here's the deck, you probably already know what it's all about. It casts a lot of spells, gains a lot of armor, draws a ton of cards, drops Yaks around as soon as turn 5 or 6, has good AoE with Prison Breaker, and it can basically OTK you with the help of Ignis, who can give you Wind Fury even at the 1 mana weapon, and all you gotta do is just Solar Eclipse a bunch of extra damage with Harmonic Mood, with Rake, Bounce, and that's usually above 30 damage in 1 turn. It has good amount of survivability with the help of Rake, as well as with the Prison Breaker, and it gains a ton of armor with Seedling, as well as all of the other cards like Harmonic Mood and whatnot. So yeah, it's obviously an absolute monster of a deck right now, and you even have the Titan in here, which also poses a meaningful threat, with which you can still have tons of things on the board, and it helps you a lot with the survivability. A lot of people think this deck only goes for the OTK with the weapon, but no, you can also just tempo out Yogg, and that can give you a bunch of tendrils, or you can just steal with it, and you can basically just win over the board entirely, or you can just attrition the opponent to death because you have so much resource gains. We also have Fizzle in here, which helps you a lot with extra cards, but yeah, all around this deck is definitely very high on the nerf list right now, so don't get attached to it, but definitely be aware this is currently the best deck, so if you have it, you might want to enjoy it while you still can, you monsters. Matchup wise, here's what the stats show, and only Mech Rogue is a meaningful counter to it, but also buff Paladin is super good against it as well, so don't sleep on that one, and you can check it from my last video with it. Other than that, everything else is very green, aside from also Plague Death Knight, which can be a problem, especially if they have Hellion Curve, because like I said, the deck just draws tons of cards. Mulligan wise, here's what the stats show, and this is what you're going for when going first. You definitely want Embrace of Nature so you can get to your Nourish faster. You also want your Frost Lotus Seedling so it lasts in your hand 3 turns so you can actually draw a bunch with it. You also want Spread the Word because that helps a lot with the card draw in the early turns, especially comboed off with Rake against board-centric matchups, that's gonna help you with surviving. Planted Evidence is not bad because it gives you some random nonsense, and Aquatic Form is also not horrible either. When on the coin, however, the situation is not much different, but Prison Breaker also becomes a lot more keepable, and you can literally do this even on turn 3, like, you can just innervate into it, and you probably already cast 5 spells as well, so it's definitely not very hard to tempo this very quickly, so it's definitely a good keep. Again, the Lotus is great, Embrace amazing, Planted Evidence, Innervate if you have things you want to innervate into faster, and I'd say Aquatic Form is still probably not a bad idea. For other good Druid decks right now, we also have Drum Druid still doing quite fine, with all sorts of different iterations of the deck, and also Ram Druid also has all sorts of different iterations as well. But yeah, these are basically the 2 different lines you could be going with Druid right now. There's also Trend Druid, which is actually doing surprisingly well, because it's super aggressive, so I guess it would be farming Druids too. But like I said, they can have the free damage AoE super early, so you gotta be very careful to be out of range for that. And also super early Yoggs would be destroying this too. Moonbeam Druid is also actually still out there, so you actually have 4 different archetypes for Druid, so take your pick. On the number 2 spot we also have Hunter, with Arcane Hunter being probably the best performer, even though it's super close with Secret Hunter as well, but personally I think this one is much better, because with the secrets, the better the players become, the better they will be playing around your secrets, so it's kind of a double-edged sword, but it's up to you which one you choose. For me, this list is a lot more efficient and faster, so that is why I'm featuring it. Like I said, the stats are super close. In this one we have a lot more board-centric situation, and we're running things like Vicious Slither Spear, like Barrel of Monkeys, and we also have Prison Breaker, which is amazing right now, and also Yaxaron, which you could drop fairly easy with the help of your Bananas as well as Monkeys, because that's plenty of spellcast. We also have a good chunk of the Arcane package in here, with Arcane Shot, Ricochet Shot, and Celestial Shot going face. and we can empower them with things like Silvermoon Farstrider as well as Halderon. We also have Eversong Portal in this one, which is insanely good because you could be doing 4 cats or more as soon as turn 4 with the help of things like Silvermoon Farstrider, into turn 3 Celestial Shot, into turn 4 Eversong Portal, and that's just crazy. We obviously have Agrimar, which is a pretty good Titan, Astalor is a good single standalone card, and with Conjured Arrow you can draw tons of cards, and Ancient Krakenbane has a lot of extra reach. Matchup wise, again, pretty green stuff, but Control Warrior might be a problem because they are going to be gaining a lot of armor, and like I said, you're board centric, so it's going to be harder for you against control decks. Even though on the other hand, Control Warlock is actually pretty easy. As for the mulligan, here's what it looks like going first, and obviously you want your Awakened Tremors, the Trinket Tracker, Barrel of Monkeys is pretty nice, Vicious Slither Spear is probably your best keep, and if you already have a bunch of bananas like that, it's just becoming insane because this could be a turn 2 5/5. Eversong Portal can also be a keep, but I wouldn't really keep it if I already don't have a very good hand. Like, if I already have the Naga, Barrel of Monkeys, yeah, I can keep right about anything I feel like it, so Eversong Portal definitely does fit the bill there. Or you could at least have Silvermoon Farstrider for it, which also makes a lot of sense because turn 2 this, into turn 4 double Eversong Portal can just be crazy good. And honestly, like I said, if you have Silvermoon into Celestial into Eversong, that's just pretty amazing against most classes. Just be smart about what you're keeping against, because if you do this against a warrior, they're just gonna Bladestorm you most probably, so it's not that big a deal. And when on the coin, here's what the stats show again. Agrimar becomes a lot more keepable, even though I wouldn't really keep him if I already don't have a pretty good curve to begin with. Tremor and the Naga still great, Barrel of Monkeys, Eversong Portal a lot more keepable here, Calderon probably still great, bunch of bananas again, especially if you have Vicious Slither Spear, Silvermoon if you have Eversong Portal, and Trinket Tracker is also not bad. Depending on the matchup, like if you're against a Paladin or Hunter, Ricochet Shot might also make a lot of sense. And again, Celestial Shot might actually be a keep if you have Eversong Portal as well. For the other good Hunter decks, like I said, Secret Hunter is also very high, and it's actually higher than this, but this one has bigger sample size, even though there's another secret with even bigger sample size, but I told you, like, the secret package is great if you're playing against weaker players. When you start facing the good players, secrets are just not as effective in most cases. We have all sorts of different iterations of other Arcane Hunters out there. There's also this weird Hunter list out there, which is actually quite interesting, but I don't know, like, it definitely looks kind of weird. People will not expect it, but it has the stats for it, even though the sample size is not that big. It definitely shows to be a promising deck. Hound Hunter is still on the menu apparently, even though I wouldn't really trust it anymore. And I've also seen some Shockspitter Hunters here and there, even though I actually don't see them too much on the stats. Actually, here's one, and it's looking horrible. On the number 3 spot, we have a Pure Paladin list, and this one actually looks very different from what we're used to, because it's running all sorts of weird things like Garden's Grace. It also has the weapon back, Keeper's Strength is in here, and also Shimmering Sunfish. We also have Spotlight, and also Order in the Court. This one looks actually a lot similar to the list I showed you a few days ago, which has been murdering druids. And yeah, I definitely can see the merit on this one. You have your good 1-drops still, and you even have room for Blood Matriarch Liadrin, which can make these into rushers easily. Katori is definitely very nice because you have plenty of buffs here, including 0 mana Garden Grace as soon as turn 5 or 6. Spotlight can be pretty interesting, giving you an extra 5/5 as soon as turn 2. Hammer of Wrath for the card draw, and it's also a little bit of extra reach. Seal of Blood extra good because another Divine Shield and also another buff for Katori. And Keeper's Strength is also pretty nice against board-centric decks. Just don't forget this also kills your minions, so be careful where you use it. We also have room for the Countess for some random nonsense, and Horn of the Windlord can help you OTK people with the help of Fork Out the Loss, but we're actually not running the Mana First lifesteal in this one, so it's not as amazing. Matchup wise, only Control Priest, Rainbow Mage, and Secret Rogue will be a problem, but the rest look decently green, and like I said, Ram Druid is gonna be very easy for you. And same goes for Control Warlock and Control Warriors, so if you're sick of Control, this might be the deck for you. As for the mulligan, going first, here's what the stats show, and Boogie Down is always gonna be great. Your best 1-drop would probably be Sanguine Soldier, Blood Matriarch Liadrin, not that amazing of a keep against some classes, but if you feel like it's gonna be sticking on turn 2, might be worth taking. Spotlight pretty good if you already have a turn 1 Divine Shield like Righteous or Sanguine. Hand of Adol, same reasoning, like you gotta have a good sticky 1-drop to begin with. And Hammer of Wrath is not really something I keep too often, but it does discount your Garden's Grace faster, so it has that going for it at least. And if you don't have any other 1-drops, Sinful Sous Chef might also be a keep. And again, if you think Katori might stick, he might also be a good turn 2, which you can follow up with a good buff like Seal of Blood or Hand of a Doll and whatnot. And when on the coin, even things like Keeper's Strength become a lot more keepable, but the rest looks pretty much the same. Shimmering Starfish also is a bit higher on the keep list here, whereas Blood Matriarch Liadrin not as much, even though when going second you could even play her on turn 2 with a coin and 1-drop and you can start trading stuff, but be careful what you're doing it against. Spotlight also becomes a bit less keepable here because opponents are gonna probably be poking your Divine Shield on turn 2. For other good Pally lists, we have all sorts of different iterations of Pure Paladins, Dude Paladins, Silverhand Paladins, Buff Paladins, like so many different Pally lists out there right now, and they're all great. So yeah, right now it's definitely a great time to be an aggressive Paladin player. You have very different options which basically do kind of the same thing. So yeah, basically take your pick, honestly. Like, there's so many different ones. Just pick the one your heart desires. On the number 4 spot, we have Undead Priest with very good win rate and very big sample size, so definitely gotta include it in this top 5. And the list hasn't really changed all that much from the last few weeks. It's still running a Montool and the new legendary Soulburner Varia. The rest is pretty much the same, what we're used to with. You have very good early game with great 1-drops, which you could give Undying Allies to. You have Mind Eater, Shadow Ascendant, which is crazy good. Location helps you with extra damage and card draw, which is amazingly good against control decks. Shadowed Spirit, very nice target for your Undying Allies because it's basically 6 damage, which the opponent actually has to work for quite a lot to deal with. Soulburner Varia gives you extra damage as well as extra shadow spells, and that can be very nice. Great digging for the card draw, obviously. Rotting Necromancer is usually 5 damage to the face, even though we are actually running a lot of non-undeads in here, so it's not super consistent, but it is what it is. High Cult is still amazing, and Shadow Word on Death has a lot of good AoE, so if you time it right, it can be a crazy good swing. Matchup-wise, here's what the stats show. You're gonna be 50-50 against Ramp Druid, so that's not great. Silverhand Pally is also 50-50. Mech Rogue is gonna be very sad for you, but the rest looks pretty great. Mulligan-wise, going first, you definitely want your good 1-drops. Shadow Ascendant is very good, especially if you already have a good 1-drop. Undying Allies feels a little bit of a bait here, because when you're going first, it's a lot harder to actually utilize this. And you actually gotta get lucky with the top decks in order to actually pull something decent. But I guess if you have Undying Allies, something like Banshee and Foul Egg, you could just skip turn 1 and do this on turn 2, and that can be insanely powerful. Mind Eater is also fine, and I guess if you're curving into the Shadowed Spirit, that might also be a keep, and Location is also usually a great keep. When on the coin, it's pretty much the same thing. Undying Allies, though, becomes even more keepable there because you have extra cards and a coin, so you can pull off a turn 1 Egg and Banshee, which is crazy good. And it's actually important the order in which you play your Death Rattles, because if the opponent kills your board with an AoE, the Death Rattles trigger in the order you've played them. So always play your Egg first and then the Banshee, and that way, when both of these die, you're gonna summon a 3/3, and after that you're gonna buff it into a 5/4, and that's just a lot better. Shadow Ascendant still amazing, Arms Dealer with the Egg as well is great. Location helps you a lot, and you could even consider the High Cultist if you already have a good curve going. Psychic Conjurer is not that amazing of a card, because it really doesn't do all that much. And also wouldn't really hold on to Gravedigging all that much, because in the first 3 turns you want to be building boards, not drawing cards, so keep that in mind. And if you already have a good curve going, turn 3 Soulburner could be amazingly good, because by the time you drop her, you might already have a very good board established, which you can start trading into the opponent, and that's gonna help you a ton. For other good Priest decks, we're gonna have to scroll quite a while to start seeing Control Priest, which is still acceptable, even though just at 52, but it definitely still feels annoying as hell playing against it. And on the last spot, we have Rainbow Mage, which is still doing great. And this iteration runs even Yaxaron in here. We're no longer running Solid Alibi, which for me personally feels like a weird choice, but we do have a couple of Void Scriptures, which is honestly not the best card out there, so I'm really not sure why we're running something like this, like it's not even discovering from spells you haven't cast yet. Yeah, it's kinda cool when you get the high roll and discover something you cast the same turn, but all around it kinda feels like a weird card to include here, but this is what the stats show right now. We still have good armor gain with Artificer, Arcane Worm obviously, so you can get your Arcane Bolt. Discover of Magic is very nice, so you can fill in the gaps, finding things like Holy, Nature, all that kind of spells. Flame guys are pretty nice, so you can go face with it usually, but it's also a fire spell, so if you already haven't cast that one, you might want to also throw this one in the mix. Cosmic Keyboard helps you with the board situation. Infinitize so you can discover extra stuff, and the discount is also pretty good. Prismatic Elemental, kind of same situation, basically discovering something and also getting a little bit of discount on it. The Molten Rune can go face, which is pretty huge, so you might save it for the Sif OTK, because it's gonna be dealing the damage twice. Reverberation you could be using on your Sif, so that way you can double up the spell power and just kill them with a 1 mana spell after that. Cold Case also pretty good for extra armor and a little bit of board presence. Inquisitor so you can have some great AoE. Volume up to get extra stuff. Wisdom so you can card draw easier. Sif obviously for the OTK. And Elemental pretty good as well because you could get a lot of rushers out of this and that can help you with the board situation. And same with Yogg. And when all else fails you might even consider the Tendril game plan. But if it's coming down to that you probably already lost. Matchup wise, here's what the stats show, and Ram Druid is not amazing, so after the patch it should be a lot more bearable, and also Hunters are not gonna be your friend, but that is to be expected when playing Mage. For the mulligan going first, here's what the stats show. Cold Case very high actually when going first, but it is a very good card indeed. Arcane Worm so you can have a good turn 1, Prismatic Elemental is great, Cosmic Keyboard as well. Volume up, also pretty nice so you can get extra gas, and even a turn 1 Artificer can be very annoying for the opponent because they're gonna want to deal with it as fast as possible. Sif, I would definitely not be keeping probably ever, like what the hell. And the rest you probably have to have a pretty good reason to consider. As for On the Coin, the situation is not much different, but also Inquisitive Creation becomes a lot more keepable here because you could even coin it out for some free damage AoE if you expect the matchup to be going on that route. Infinitize Maxitude also makes some sense going second, I guess, and Yogg, not a lot of people keep it, so you probably have to have a very good reason to consider it. Discover of Magic though seems like not a bad idea. For other good Mage decks, here's what the situation shows, and it's basically just different iterations of Rainbow Mage for quite a while. Spooky Mage is about 52%, so not that amazing. There's also Elemental Mage, but that's under 50, so no reason to look further. For the classes we haven't mentioned, starting off with Death Knight, we have Unholy Death Knight being the best performer, and it's not even running Plagues. After that we have Plague Decay, however, and this one is still running the Unholy package. We also have a Blood Plague Decay out there with decent-ish stats, and just straight up Blood Death Knight, which is still doing okay-ish with about 53%. But yeah, all around these are gonna be the decks you want to be going for with DK. As for with Demon Hunter, Aggro Demon Hunter is actually kinda high. I'm assuming they're farming some Druids here and there, but not that many. Outcast Demon Hunter, kind of the same situation. Big Demon Hunter is actually above 52 again, which has been a while. Relic Demon Hunter went above 50 as well, and these other iterations not as amazing. For Rogue, Secret Rogue is still doing amazingly well, especially in top 1000, so I could have just as easily included that instead of Rainbow Mage here. Miracle Rogue is also doing pretty fine. Mech Rogue is also farming Druids nice and good. And there's also this Weapon Rogue out there, which is weird. So yeah, you have plenty of different options for Rogue right now. With Shaman, Totem Shaman would be your best bet. Anything other than that is just under 50. With Warlock, Control Warlock is still actually doing acceptably well, even though it's gonna be horrible against Druids. Thaddeus Warlock is also doing fine. And we also have Curse Warlock above 50, but not by much. And lastly, we still have Warrior with very decent stats both on Enrage Warrior and on Control Warrior, so the class is definitely doing a lot better than it used to. But those two archetypes are basically it for the class. So that's gonna be it for this top 5, guys. Hope this helps you figure out what you want to be playing until the next nerfs happen. Don't forget to drop a like and subscribe to the channel if you enjoy what I'm doing. Thanks for watching, I'm Kris05, and I'll see you in my next video or stream.